Hi. The following video is going to demonstrate how to configure your workforce planning application to utilize direct input of salary and for new to-be hires. So out of the box, workforce planning supports driver-based to-be hires where you assign salaries to grades, and then when you associate an employee with that particular job type or you're asking for a new job, and that job is then assigned to that particular grade, you'll be populated within the system. So sometimes users want to be able to enter direct input of salaries, and this is a method to change this with pretty minor customizations to the system. Let's go through the steps. The first thing that I needed to do was make some modifications to metadata. So within the workforce cube, I added underneath employee properties a member called salary input, which is basically just the storing the salary inputs for here. I then went to the component dimension and added a grade for manual input. I already had grade 1, grade 2 set up. Those are going to be my driver based. And manual input is where we're going to have some manual inputs associated with it. I also did some work in the years dimension. When we enter in the rate, we're going to be storing it in no year within the current years as well. So what I did was I created an alias on the no year member global default. You can call it whatever you'd like. But basically that set up the dimensionality that I needed to build out the framework. And then I ran a refresh on the system. After that, I went into a member form. I needed a form. So I took one of the existing member forms. And I modified the new hire form. And I added 2 columns within the new hire form. So I added 2 columns as column A and column B. And I also took the years dimension out of the point of view and dropped them into the columns. I unhid the dimension for year. And in the first column, I basically said this is where I want to put in my salary input, the account that I'm referencing, the salary basis, and the value, beginning balance, no year. Second column, I wanted to focus on the current year. So I did salary input, basis, value, beginning balance, and then just the year that I currently have picked as my substitution variable or my user variable when I added that in. I also had to turn the form off to use read only because it was so this way I can create some entering. And it should look something like this when you're done. If you have members added, you'll see I'll have a spot to input my salary basis in column and for the overall for the year. And then I have an actual spot to put it if I need to override it in a given year. This override's really going to come in handy if you have a multi-year plan. So if you do in like FY20, FY, so we'll do an example of it to show how we would actually override it. So once I had the form, I had to create a member formula or modify the member formula to take a look at it in those pieces. So I made changes, and I'll put this member formula on the video. But what I did was I modified the web form the member formula to do a few different things. Oh, wrong member, sorry. One below, basic salary. I tried to keep as much out of the box as possible. So what this is doing is this first 2 lines are out of the box. And the first thing is the first check here is checking to see that in the current year, is there any data in the manual override? And if there's data in the current year override, basically utilize that to calculate out the salary. If there's nothing in the current year override, look to the global or no year override, and then utilize that member or that value to calculate out the salary. And then finally, this is what comes out of the box. Just utilize the current method of how workforce planning will calculate out the salary by looking for it in the default locations. So then I refreshed this member form, refreshed this after it was all done. So now that that's all refreshed, I went into compensation planning and I made sure I had some defaults assigned. So I have two defaults associated with salary. For this particular entity, I have all jobs and I have the skill level youngling and grandmaster. Youngling is using grade 1, grandmaster is using manual input. This is a employee job model, and I'm utilizing the union code as kind of like a skill level type of code. Once that was done, I also had some salary grades, so I have some predefined grades set up to use the driver-based approach, as well as my manual input, which is just blank, and adding those in. Then I can go to my new hire screen. And on my new hire screen, I already have some hires added into the system. The first ones we're looking at is that you have, like, for example, a pilot, and this is at the youngling. And this is going to be basically utilizing a driver-based approach. So it's 50,000. This one is particularly overwritten. So this is a 125 approach. So this is using the manual one and setting those up. But you could take a look at these and actually just let's go ahead and add a couple. So we're going to add a hiring request. And if you notice this, I haven't changed this at all. This add to be hire is exactly the same that comes out of the box. So there's been no changes to this at all. So I just wanted to find where I wanted to start. Union code. We're going to be using a youngling code. And this one should be driver based. Soldier already. Let's pick a totally different guy. Let's pick smuggler. So we're picking smuggler, driver based. Youngling is the key consideration there. So it should be populating that, adding that to be hire based off of the drivers that are associated with grade 1, and adding that rec in. So the to be hire was added successfully. There's my soldier, all the compensation. If I take a quick look at that employee underneath details, go to soldier, smuggler, I think I just added. Hiring rec 1. Take a look at that project. You'll see that it's grade 1, and basically the salary got calculated out with all the additional other benefits and taxes that I have set up for this system. Now, if we take a look, let's add another one, a manual input one. So we're going to add another hiring rec. We're going to make another soldier. But this time, we're going to add him at a different level. Grandmaster. Direct input. Boom. So again, when we add this soldier in, what's going to happen is that he's not going to have basically no salary. He'll have all the defaults associated with him, but most of them that are driver-based or percentage of salary won't know what to do. They won't calculate. Some of them are just flat, so I have basically one here that just applies a flat number. But if you notice, you look at this user, he's got basically nothing associated with him at all from a salary perspective. And if we were going to look at this one underneath hiring rec 2, we'll see that this is actually set to be the manual input for the driver percent on the driver's side. So now let's go and actually input some numbers for him. So hiring rec 2 is a grandmaster. I want to put in a salary basis. Again, I could set this to be anyone I want. Annual, we'll give him 75. Okay. And we'll hit save. So now it should be saving and actually calculating out the salary for that employee. So now I have his total salary of 75,000, 2 years, rolling that through, setting that up. One of the things I can also do with this is override the salary. So if I want to basically override one of these particular jobs, so I can take this one, and it was using drivers, make it annual. And set it to be, click save again. It should be saving it and also calculating out the salary for him. So now that should be running. So 125, rolling that through. I could also go and clear it out if I wanted. And that should take it back to the driver-based approach, which it did there. So let's take a look what would happen for the next year. So let's move over to FY20. So I've added these employees in FY19, and they're going to be moving forward to FY20. The driver-based employees are going to follow the overall driver, but you can actually have the ability to say if you want to override the salary in the current year. So if you'll notice, this particular guy is using 125, and this one's still using the last year's salary. So now it's using 130 in this current year, and in this user that we just added is still using the 75,000. But now, say if I wanted to grant him an override in FY20 because I'm doing a multi-year plan, I can go and grant it. And let's see, he's making 70. And save it out. So that means that in FY20, I can now raise that particular individual salary and compensation for it and save it out to 100,000. So if I look at that and then go back to FY19, he's still going to be at the 75,000 rate, which is fine, which is what I want. So I can end up change it based off of that. So now I have the ability to do a global and also set those up for individual year overrides to follow that through. Like I said, the main to be hired calcs are the same. You may notice that I'm running calculate. I have a Groovy script actually enabled that determines when I make changes to an individual salary, and it's running calculate compensation on this form. So that's actually a Groovy script set up in the background that'll run it dynamically. We're setting that up so that way out of the box you may need to run the Groovy script. You may need to run the calculate employee compensation until if you don't know how to set those up. But you can define those. You can write a Groovy script to basically see what's been changing and write those to the actual members. So I would recommend doing something like that, especially for your users, because it's important to keep calculating the compensation all the time once you have your defaults associated with the users. And that way you don't have to keep right-clicking and asking to recalculate the compensation. So it's just something to think about. So calculating compensation all aligns it if you make it happen all the time. So if you don't understand Groovy, or you can reach out to me and I can show you an example of the script, or if I might do it in another example, but just to see how that would run. But if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks. Bye.